In this video, I'm discussing the 7 factors you need to watch for very carefully before making any buy or sell decisions when it comes to real estate. Understanding these key factors can help you avoid costly mistakes, potentially saving you tens of thousands of dollars in the process. You may ask, who am I to talk about these topics? For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Toronto real estate agent running one of the top teams in Toronto. I've worked with buyers and sellers for the past 9 years, and also you may have seen me on global news discussing the real estate market as well. I'm going to put timestamps under this video, so if you need to go back to a part later on, you can use that timestamp to go to that part. If at any part of this video you think you have questions on Toronto real estate market, use the link down below to book a discovery call with myself or my team to go through your questions. Finally, in order to help us provide you with more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's get started. I'm going to start with number 7, replacement value versus the market value. Replacement value refers to the cost of building a home, while market value is what the buyers are willing to pay for a home. These two factors often diverge, especially during housing busts or housing booms. When we are talking about replacement costs, the first thing that comes to mind is construction costs. So construction costs have risen at 25 to 30% since 2020. That increased the replacement value. On top of that, you have development charges and levies, then you have soft costs, then you have permit costs, then you have taxes, and on top of that, you are going to have the land acquisition costs. All these costs have increased in the past 5 years and made the replacement cost diverge far away from the market value. Next one is number 6, global factors. Real estate markets don't operate in isolation. Global economic events impact the home prices in Canada, whether we like it or not. For example, interest rate, investment flows are also being impacted by the global events. As an example, we have global inflation and interest rates. So the Bank of Canada and United States Federal Reserve adjust interest rates based on the global inflation trends. A strong US dollar impacts the foreign real estate investors' decision in Canada. Another key stat is foreign investment. Pre-2023, foreign buyers from China, United States, and India accounted for between 5 to 10% of real estate transactions in the cities like Vancouver and Toronto. Another factor is oil prices and economic ties. So for example, Alberta's housing market is closely tied to oil prices. So meaning that higher oil prices and boosted employment increases the housing demand. So overall, global recessions, trade policies, tariffs, and geopolitical events can cause interest rates to rise or fall, can cause investors' activity to shift and property values to fluctuate. Number 5 is regulatory changes. Government policies and regulations significantly affect real estate prices. From tax incentives to rent control to foreign buyer bans, all of them can affect real estate prices. If you look at some of the key statistics and trends, we'll see that mortgage stress test introduced in 2018, it required borrowers to qualify at a higher interest rate that caused the buying power of those buyers to reduce. And another example is foreign buyers ban that said non-Canadians are restricted from buying residential properties to curb speculative investment. So by non-Canadian means non-residents, because permanent residents are not technically Canadian citizens, but they can already purchase and sell properties. Another example is vacancy tax. Cities like Vancouver and Toronto have introduced vacant home taxes to discourage investors from keeping properties empty. So as we saw that regulations can cool down overheated markets by restricting a speculative demand, but can also reduce the supply if developers pull back on projects. Number 4 is supply. What is supply? Supply is basically housing inventory and why it matters. Limited housing supply relative to demand leads to higher property prices. If new housing supply cannot keep up with the population growth, home prices will continue to rise. Some of the key stats and trends are as following. Basically, CMHC estimated that the country needs 3.5 million additional homes by the end of 2030 to restore the balance between supply and demand in Canada. On the other hand, we have construction challenges, including higher labor costs, slow zoning approvals, and material shortages. In Toronto and Vancouver, delays in new housing projects have led to record low inventory levels, which can push the prices a little bit higher. So all in all, a shortage of housing supply in high demand cities pushes the prices upward, while increased housing developments can help to stabilize or reduce the prices. Now let's talk about number 3, population growth. So Canada relies heavily on immigration to sustain housing demand. Cities experiencing rapid population growth typically see higher home prices due to increased demand and limited supply. Some of the key stats and trends are as following. Canada has one of the highest immigration rates in the world, welcoming over $500,000 new immigrants per year. Another one is major urban centers like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal absorb most of this growth, which fuels the real estate demand in those cities. The next one is the rise of millennial home buyers. So basically those who age between 30 to 40 years old has further increased demand for housing right now. So as we saw, a growing population increases housing demand. If the supply can't keep up with it, it can cause prices to rise, especially in urban centers and desirable suburban areas. Let's talk about number two, and then we go to number one, which is the main factor. So number two is job security. Real estate market thrives when the employment rates are high and wages are growing. A strong job market increases confidence in home buying, while economic uncertainty reduces the demand. So some of the key stats and trends are as following. In Ontario, for example, job creation in tech, for example, the city of Toronto, or manufacturing, the Hamilton area, or logistics, let's say around Mississauga or Peel region, has driven the housing demand. So cities with a stronger employment growth like Calgary, for example, in energy sector, and Montreal for tech or AI sector have seen high home price appreciations in the past while. On the other hand, economic downturns such as COVID-19 recession led to temporary market slowdowns as uncertainty made buyers cautious. So as you can see, markets with high job security and wage growth experience rising property values, while areas with job losses may see decline in demand and following to that decline in price appreciation. So let's talk the number one factor, which is cost of ownership. The cost of owning a home includes more than just the purchase price. It involves the mortgage rate, property taxes, maintenance, and insurance. As these costs change, they directly influence the housing affordability and demand. Let's talk about some of the key stats and trends. The most important part when it comes to the cost of home ownership are mortgage rates. If you remember back in 2021, you could get mortgages, let's say 5-year fixed, for around 2%. But now, as the time I'm recording this video, the mortgage rate, the 5-year fixed from the major banks are around mid 4%. Let's say for example mid to low 4% right now. They were closer to 6% at some point a year and a half ago. So higher interest rates reduce borrowing power, and that reduced borrowing power makes homes less affordable, and that will cause basically the prices to go down. The second one is property taxes. Toronto property tax is around 66 to 67%. It depends, while the Vancouver is much lower. Higher property taxes discourage buyers and can impact home values. But again, the impact that higher or lower property taxes have on home values are not as big of a deal as high or low interest rates. The next factor is maintenance costs. Again, this comes third. So rising material and labor costs make homeownership more expensive, affecting the home resale values. For example, if you need to replace a furnace, or if you need to replace your shingles, the roof shingles. So these are the costs that are involved with maintenance. So as you can see, when mortgage rates and ownership costs rise, fewer people can afford to buy. So that would lead to slower price growth, even price declines. Conversely, lower mortgage rates and ownership costs make the home ownership more accessible. That would cause increasing the demand and driving up the property value. So in order to be or stay in the know, I suggest you go and check my latest video on the real estate market and make sure to subscribe to my channel.